Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere soft and strange, like the space between dreaming and waking where nothing feels quite real, but nothing feels wrong either. Outside your window, the world is still. A gentle breeze lifts the curtains. Somewhere in the distance, a motorbike hums like a lullaby with an engine, and the light on your wall, it shifts ever so slightly. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're still half asleep when you notice it, not alarmed, just curious. Your shadow seems a little slower than usual, not by much, but when you move your hand to smooth your blanket, you catch it in the corner of your eye, lagging behind by a breath, like it needed a moment to remember how to follow you. You sit up, a stretch, yawn, and there it is again. The shadow does follow, just not quite perfectly. You shift your weight, it catches up. You scratch your head, it scratches too half a beat late. It's almost like dreaming while awake. The details are gentle and odd, nothing sharp, nothing wrong, just different. And anyway, you're used to feeling a bit out of step these days. Maybe it's the lack of sleep. Maybe it's how every day lately seems to blur into the next like paint in water. Still, something about your shadow, its softness, its silence draws your attention more than usual. You stand up slowly, letting your feet find the floor like they're testing for gravity. The wood feels cool, the room feels timeless, like you could be in any century at all. The only sound is the hush of early morning, and your shadow lying gently beside you on the floor, not quite mirroring you, just choosing its own pace. You smile a little, not out of fear, more like recognition. There's something familiar in that slight rebellion. Haven't you ever wanted to wander off on your own for a while? Maybe your shadow's simply taking its turn. Historians still argue whether people ever truly believed shadows had minds of their own. Some say in ancient Greece shadows were linked to the soul. Others point to medieval stories where shadows could be stolen or sold like rare birds. The truth, of course, is less about belief and more about longing. Because a shadow really is the most loyal companion you'll ever have, and yet you never truly see it unless there's light. Isn't that a little poetic? You move quietly to the window. The city outside is pale with pre-dawn light. You lean close to the glass, and there against the floor, your shadow seems to tilt its head the same way you do. Not late this time, just different, as if it's thinking. You step back, it steps with you. You take one more step and pause. This time your shadow doesn't follow. It stays still and long and thoughtful, like it's watching something you can't see. And you feel calm, like when you find a photograph you don't remember taking, but it still makes sense. You put on your slippers, pull a sweater over your head, and head outside. The air is gentle and smells like faraway rain. The sky hasn't quite decided whether to turn blue or stay asleep. You walk slowly, and somewhere behind or maybe beside you, the shadow eventually begins to follow again. Though now you're not sure whether it's yours at all. The morning is the kind that feels borrowed, light gray, cool, quiet. The sidewalks are damp, as if someone gently rinsed the night off them just before you stepped outside. You walk without thinking, not really sure where you're going, but somehow feeling like something is waiting to meet you. Your shadow trails along loosely tethered. It no longer moves exactly as you do. It seems to pause when you hurry, glide when you stop. If you didn't know better, you'd say it was making up its own mind, but instead of unsettling it, feels oddly respectful, like a friend giving you space. The market square is just starting to yawn open. Metal shutters rise, fruit crates appear like magic tricks, and someone in a blue apron is gently brushing last night's dust from the bread stall. You pass a flower cart with bundles of lavender, and the scent follows you like memory. And then you see him. A man in a tan coat seated cross-legged behind a table full of antique mirrors and oddly shaped glass bottles. But what stops you cold is this: he doesn't cast a shadow. None at all. Not a smear, not a smudge. Just sunlight and him sitting solidly in the middle of it, completely unshadowed. You slow your steps. He looks up, and before you can speak, he smiles. "Yours is walking a little ahead today," he says gently, as if he's commenting on the weather. You don't answer. You're too busy checking the pavement around him again. Still nothing. It's not a trick of the light. He's sitting there, like he's always lived outside the rules of reflection. "I used to have one," he continues, reaching for a small brass teapot on his stall. "Mine left years ago. Very polite about it, actually. Left me a note." You blink. Maybe this is a dream. The steam rising from his tea curls into the air like question marks. You ask him softly, where do they go? He shrugs, lifting a mirror and wiping it with a cloth. Some go wandering, some are looking for better light, some just get tired of following. Then he gestures to one of the mirrors on his table. It's old oval shape, the kind you'd expect to find in an attic under a blanket of dust. You look into it. At first nothing seems odd, but then you notice your shadow isn't reflected in the glass. Just you, blinking, alone. There's no fear though, only stillness. I don't sell those, the man says, tapping the frame. They're for reminders. You'll want to remember how things looked before. Before what? He doesn't answer. Instead, he pulls a cloth from a small stack and begins folding it with exact, careful movements. You thank him and walk on, still unsure whether anything just happened at all. Historians still argue whether shadows ever held any meaning beyond the poetic. In some ancient cultures, a person's shadow was seen as a measure of their vitality. In others, it was taboo to step on someone else's shadow, believed to damage their spirit. And somewhere in the tangle of folklore and metaphor, there's always been a quiet suspicion that shadows might have a will of their own. You glance down. Yours is walking properly beside you again, quiet, close, calm. You both pass a bakery, the smell of warm crust and flour breathing out from the windows. A cat stares at you from a windowsill and then shifts its gaze downward, following your shadow with a long, suspicious blink. You turn into a smaller alley, now familiar yet strangely hazy. Maybe it's the morning fog. Maybe it's just your mind still wrapped in the softness of sleep. The alley leads to a tiny plaza with a dry fountain and a round iron bench. You sit stretching your legs slowly. Across the way, an old man plays a quiet accordion tune that sounds like someone remembering something from far away. Your shadow doesn't sit with you. It stands leaned gently against a lamppost like it's keeping watch. And for the first time, you get the sense it isn't just following you anymore. It's guiding. You don't remember deciding to move again. It just happens. One moment you're sitting quietly on the bench listening to that accordion sigh its way through a sleepy melody, and the next your feet are taking you down a street you've never noticed before. It curves, gently paved in uneven stones that click beneath your shoes like soft punctuation. Morning has brightened now, but the light is still kind, diffused through mist, touching nothing too sharply. A bird sings somewhere above, and a shopkeeper sweeps the stoop of a bookstore that smells like cedar and rain. As you pass a bakery window, your shadow flickers there, then not, then there again. You pause, but nothing feels wrong, just curious, like the world's been layered slightly differently today, as if reality has shuffled its cards and dealt you a version where shadows don't always follow rules. That's when you meet her. She's sitting on a low stone wall, shelling peas into a bowl. Her shawl is the color of twilight, and her hair is silver, not white, but reflective like a puddle catching sky. Still got yours, I see, she says without looking up. You glance around, there's no one else in sight. Your shadow, she clarifies, smiling faintly. Most folks don't notice until it's too late. You ask her what that means. She pats the spot beside her on the wall, and when you sit, she tilts her bowl toward you. Peas like tiny green moons, each one softly clicking into place. Long time ago, she begins, the sun refused to rise for 3 days. Or so they say. The people panicked. Crops failed, animals wouldn't settle, even the wind forgot which way to blow. But the strangest part, she holds up a pea between 2 fingers. No one cast a shadow, not a single one. It wasn't the darkness that frightened them, it was the absence. You listen, the soft sound of peas dropping into the bowl, becoming a kind of rhythm. Historians still argue whether this story is based on a real solar event. Some say it might refer to an extreme volcanic eruption, perhaps Krakatoa darkening the skies with ash. Others insist it was symbolic or a later invention meant to explain lost time in village records. Either way, the tale remains a whole world without shadows and the quiet unraveling that followed. You know, she adds, there are places where the ground still won't take shadows, sacred spots, or cursed depending who you ask. They say if you step there just for a moment, your shadow might slip away and never come back. She reaches into her shawl and pulls out a faded drawing. It's sketched on old paper lines, delicate and uncertain. A village square, a fountain, and shadows long stretching in the wrong direction. She folds the paper again and presses it into your hand. Not to keep, she says, just to carry a while. You thank her, unsure what else to do. She nods as if you've passed some invisible test and goes back to her peas. You walk on. The street is quieter now. Even the birds seem to have taken a break. You pass a tailor's shop with jackets hung like sleeping people, arms limp and waiting. You glance at your shadow again. It walks just a little closer now, almost shoulder to shoulder. Up ahead, you notice a narrow stone archway. You don't remember ever seeing it before, and yet it feels oddly familiar, like it's been waiting for you. You step through, and for the briefest moment the world hums, a low, pleasant vibration like a cello playing from underground. Then nothing. But when you check your shadow, it's gone. You turn slowly, heart not racing but listening. Then it returns, stepping through a second later, as if the arch was a door it needed time to unlock. And when it settles beside you again, you could swear just faintly it nods. The archway behind you fades into the fog as if politely stepping out of sight. You're in a narrow street now, quiet and sun-dappled, with ivy tumbling lazily down from balconies and old shutters half closed like dozing eyelids. The cobblestones here are smoother, worn thin by centuries of footsteps you'll never know. You walk slowly, not cautiously, just gently, like you're trying not to wake the street itself. Your shadow reappears beside you, keeping pace but not perfectly. Sometimes it drifts to one side or shortens while you stretch. At one point, it moves to the wrong side, entirely defying the direction of light. You glance at it amused. It seems to be enjoying itself. Then through the veil of morning haze, you spot it just ahead. A flicker, a slip of darkness darting across an open square. It looked like your shadow, but faster, sharper, independent. You pause. Maybe it was a trick of the light, or a bird's wing catching sun at the right angle. But when you take another step forward, you spot it again. That familiar outline. Your outline. Running. You hurry after it, half laughing, half confused. Your shoes clack across the stones and people turn to look, mostly old men sipping tea and a child holding a pastry larger than her head. No one else seems to notice the thing you're chasing. The square is larger than it looked from afar. Open, warm, bright. Statues line the perimeter, stone generals pointing in odd directions as if perpetually giving someone confusing directions. And there, slipping through the legs of a bronze horse, your shadow. It pauses just long enough for you to see it. Then it's gone again, disappearing into the crowd. You follow it through a maze of hanging laundry and the drifting scents of garlic and lemon. Someone calls out in a language you don't recognize. A bell chimes noon, though the sun says otherwise. Finally, you reach a small plaza, empty, still. At the center, there's a mosaic underfoot, a circle of sun and moon locked in an endless slow dance. You stand at its center. The silence wraps around you like a blanket that still remembers being warm. And there on the edge of the design is your shadow, stretched long and thin, waiting. It doesn't run this time. You step closer, and now that you're near, you can see it's not quite your shadow. It has your shape, yes, but there's something different about how it moves, like it's been away and picked up habits you never taught it. Its posture is a little straighter. Its movements are quieter, more deliberate. It tilts its head. So do you. It mirrors you mostly, but not perfectly. You kneel down slowly, and for a moment you both freeze. A pigeon waddles past completely unimpressed. Then your shadow shifts a little closer. You don't feel fear. Instead, it's like recognizing an old friend at a party you didn't expect to attend. Familiar but different. Still you, but stretched by something you didn't quite live through. Historians still argue whether the legend of the runaway shadow ever had a single point of origin. Some say it came from Southeast Asian folklore, where shadows were believed to hold a person's soul. Others claim it was born in Europe's long winters, when shadows disappeared for months and people whispered that they might be living lives elsewhere. There's even an obscure painting from the 1600s tucked in a Bavarian chapel that shows a young boy reaching toward his own shadow as it walks calmly into a forest. You and your shadow sit there together for a while, not speaking, not moving, just resting. And then slowly it stands. It walks into your space and your feet begin to move with it, not because you told them to, but because they trust it. You follow. No one notices. Not the baker, not the barber, not the elderly couple laughing softly over a bowl of cherries. Just you and the sliver of yourself that got away, moving back into step, one careful stride at a time. You've always known mirrors as quiet things, flat, obedient, predictable. They reflect, they copy, they stay put. But today, as you follow your newly rejoined shadow through the mellow hush of midday, something about the glass in shop windows and silver-framed mirrors seems off. Not wrong, just different. The first one is subtle. a bakery window pane fogged at the corners. You catch your reflection, but only yours. No shadow behind it, not stretched across the tiles, not crouching at your feet. You blink, the shape returns, but this time it's smiling before you do. You try another, a hand mirror left in the open stall of an antiques vendor. The stall is unattended, but the mirror calls to you with its quiet gleam. You lift it gently, expecting to see your face gently pink from walking. And you do see your face, but the eyes blink out of sync. Yours blink once, the mirror blinks twice. You hold your breath, then it's normal again. Your reflection yawns when you do, scratches its eyebrow exactly as you do. It's subtle enough to dismiss, but not subtle enough to forget. By the time you reach a shop filled with vintage picture frames and mirrored panels, the oddity has shifted from curious to softly persistent. Every piece of glass behaves just a little bit wrong. One shows you walking a half second behind yourself. One shows you with someone standing next to you even when no one is there. And one placed low beside a potted fern does something you're not sure you even saw. It winked, gently, like an inside joke only the mirror understands. You step away laughing quietly to yourself. Not frightened, not even unsettled, just very, very aware that the world is playing by slightly different rules today. You take a seat on a nearby bench nestled under a fig tree with knobby branches like sleepy elbows. A breeze passes through warm, dry, tinged with something herbal. You close your eyes for a moment. When you open them, a child is standing in front of you. She's holding a mirror, an old one rectangular rimmed in worn brass. She doesn't say anything, just holds it out to you like an offering. You take it. She walks away. Inside the mirror, there's no you at all. Not your face, not your hands, not even the sky behind you. Just fog, shifting, then clearing just enough to show two silhouettes side by side. They're walking down a long road. You think one is you. The other could be, well, it could be your shadow, or someone else entirely. Their heads are tilted toward one another like they're talking, but the mirror makes no sound. Historians still argue about the supposed mirror anomalies recorded in certain corners of the world mirrors that reflect futures instead of presents, or ones that show missing people who later reappear. The story of the midnight glass in Prague claims that once during a solar storm, an entire family watched their reflections turn away from them and leave the room entirely. Most scholars dismiss it as folklore, a cautionary tale, but stories like that have a habit of lingering. You place the child's mirror gently on the bench beside you. Your own reflection in the shop window now looks exactly as it should. You smile, it smiles, you lift a hand, so does it. But when you walk away and glance back one last time, it's still there, standing, watching, not following. Your shadow, however, is with you, step for step. Its presence beside you now feels warmer, steadier, like it's made a decision to stay. For now. You head down a shaded street lined with sun-dried laundry and sleeping cats. Every now and then a breeze nudges the fabric and makes it dance. Your shadow sways with it lightly like it remembers music. And somewhere nearby, maybe in a window or a puddle or an old mirror left facing the wrong way, your reflection lingers just a moment longer than it should, but only just. The path ahead opens wider now, the buildings giving way to low stone walls and sunlit courtyards scattered with orange trees and flaking paint. The city seems to sigh here, as if stretching out after a long sleep. You move slowly, shadow beside you once again, neither of you in a hurry. On a quiet corner, you pass a low municipal building, maybe a town hall, maybe just an old archive. It smells of paper and lime plaster. The door stands open, unattended but inviting. Inside, the air is cool and dry, and the shelves are thick with curled parchment and cracked ledgers stacked like sleeping stories. You wander in fingers trailing along a dusty banister, and something about the space makes you whisper, though no one has told you to be quiet. A man emerges from between the shelves, holding a faded red folder in his arms. He doesn't seem surprised to see you. Looking for anything in particular, he asks, adjusting his glasses with a movement that suggests he already knows the answer. You say you're just wandering. Most good things are found that way, he replies, and lays the folder on a nearby table. This one might interest you. You hesitate. He nods encouragingly. So you open it. Inside is a thin ledger handwritten in ink so faint it's nearly vanished. The pages are uneven, marked with tall, looping script and occasional thumbprints. Along the margin in a different hand, someone has doodled tiny silhouettes, stick figure people, all with exaggerated shadows trailing behind them like cloaks. You scan the lines. It's a tax record, specifically a list of individuals charged a shade duty. You read that again, shade duty. Next to each name is a small number, some only a single mark, some in the double digits, and a word in Latin you half recognize. The man notices your puzzlement. Shadow tax, he says softly. 13th century, small coastal villages. It didn't last long and very few records survived. Most historians think it was symbolic or maybe tied to superstition. But there it is. You look closer. One entry catches your eye. Lucia, spinner of thread 6 nights without shade, find 2 silvers. She reportedly worked by moonlight, the man adds, claimed her shadow had taken to wandering after dark. A few others said the same. The local council, unsure what to do, imposed a fee, as if losing a shadow were some kind of civic inconvenience. Historians still argue whether these shadow finds were metaphorical, perhaps referring to periods of illness or absence, or whether some communities truly believed shadows could slip away from their owners, leaving behind only questions and tax bills. Some fringe scholars even connect them to harvest cycles or early weather omens. But looking at the page now, it doesn't feel metaphorical. It feels very specific. You turn to another entry. Marcelo Baker's shadow split in half, refused to pay. The note beside it is stern summoned for questioning, never returned. You close the ledger slowly. Outside the street has brightened the sun, sharpening the edges of every stone. Your shadow is sharp now, too, crisply drawn across the ground. You raise your hand and it lifts with you, obedient and smooth. For the first time in a while it feels normal, familiar. But as you walk on, the thought lingers someone once taxed the absence of shadows. Someone believed you could be held accountable if the part of you made from darkness decided to leave. It makes you wonder who would have paid on your behalf if yours had stayed gone. Down the road, a small boy chases a hoop, his laughter pealing down the alley like a bell. His shadow darts beside him, eager, light, nimble. For now, they belong to each other completely. You keep walking. A soft wind rises, and the laundry above you stirs again, casting hundreds of cloth shadows onto the walls. They flicker and flap, stretching long and strange like shadows who've momentarily forgotten how to stay still. Your own shadow moves beneath them, steady, solid, calm. Not fleeing, not hiding, just choosing for now to stay close. The street narrows again as you walk farther, wrapping you in warm sandstone and creeping vines. Birds chatter softly overhead, and every so often a breeze carries the faint scent of something sweet, maybe fennel or honey warming in a distant window. You're not lost, not really, but it would be difficult to retrace your steps if you tried. That seems to be the way the city prefers it. You pass under an arched passageway, and on the other side, the world shifts. It's subtle, but you feel it. The light is a little more golden, the air more still. The shadows here move differently, even the ones that belong to benches or railings. They seem quieter somehow, more deliberate. That's when you notice the house. It's not large or grand. In fact, it looks more like a cottage that accidentally wandered into the city and forgot to leave. The door is wide open, and a little wooden sign hangs beside it, Ombra Custodita, shadow kept. You're not entirely sure what that means, but it's hard to ignore a sign that sounds like a message meant for you. You step inside. The room smells like lavender and old linen. A small window lets in soft light, and on a wooden table sits a cage. It's not the kind you'd expect. No iron bars or padlocks, just thin branches bent into a dome woven gently, almost like a bird's nest. And inside, a shadow. It flutters, only for a moment. Not wild or afraid, just moving like smoke, remembering how to be shape. And sitting across from the cage is a woman. Her hair is braided with ribbon. Her eyes are tired in the kind way. She smiles when she sees you. Yours has been well behaved, she says softly, as if it were the most normal thing to say to a stranger. You glance at your feet. Your shadow stands beside you, calm as ever. They don't all like to stay put, she continues. Some are curious, some go missing, some change. You ask her gently about the cage. Oh, this isn't to trap, she says, brushing a speck of dust from the table. It's to rest. Some shadows forget how to be quiet. They burn themselves out following people who don't even notice them. She reaches into a small bowl and sprinkles something like dried rosemary into the cage. The shadow inside swirls once, then settles, like a cat curling into itself. Historians still argue whether traditions like these were ever real. Some claim that in certain parts of Sardinia and southern Italy, rural households would perform ombra calmasera, evening rituals meant to soothe restless shadows with herbs and light. Others dismiss it entirely as poetic fiction, romanticized by travel writers in the 1800s. But whether true or not, the stories linger. The woman nods toward a faded quilt hanging on the wall. It's stitched with dozens of shapes, each one the outline of a person's shadow, him carefully sewn in dark thread. Those are the ones that stayed, she says. You wonder aloud what happens to the ones that don't. She just smiles. Some return. Some find other people. Some stretch themselves so thin they become part of the landscape. You've seen them in trees, in puddles, in places you thought were empty, but felt like someone was watching. You glance again at your shadow. It's curled up slightly at the edge of your shoe as if listening. The woman offers you tea, something floral and strange. You accept it with both hands. The cup is warm and chipped and comforting in a way that has nothing to do with what's inside. She doesn't ask why you've come. She doesn't need to. Take care of it, she says, meaning your shadow. Let it rest when it needs to. Don't always make it follow. You thank her. She nods already, turning her attention back to her quiet guest in the cage. Outside, the light seems softer now. Even the pigeons coo more slowly. You feel something like peace settling over you, not because everything makes sense, but because it doesn't need to. Your shadow stretches again long and smooth, and for the first time all day it seems content. The road from the little cottage curls like ribbon, taking you into the quieter part of town, if that's even possible. Here, buildings seem older, lower, and gently leaning into each other like old friends sharing secrets. The air smells of stone and steam and something faintly metallic. You wander without urgency. After a while, the streets open into a tiled courtyard. There's no one else here, just arched doorways, shuttered windows, and a single bathhouse. At the far end, its wide wooden doors cracked open and sighing with warm mist. You're not exactly cold, but the thought of steam and silence is tempting, so you slip inside. The walls are tiled in pale green, and the ceiling is domed and glowing faintly with condensation. It's the kind of place that muffles the world, turns footsteps into whispers and thoughts into lullabies. You walk slowly past pools of rising steam. A few voices murmur behind curtains, nothing distinct. Most of the room is empty except for the rows of stone benches and wet footprints left by recent visitors. And then you see them. Footprints, charred somehow, as if made not with water, but ash. Blackened impressions pressed into the stone floor, leading from one of the smaller pools and trailing toward the far corner. The size matches yours exactly. You place your foot near one of them just to test. Perfect fit? Not close. Exact. The prints don't scare you. They don't even surprise you, not really. They just feel familiar. Like when you read something you know you didn't write, but somehow it speaks in your voice. You follow the prints. At the far corner of the room, a large copper basin sits quietly on a stone platform. Steam curls from its surface, and carved into the rim are a series of worn symbols. Some astrological, some botanical, some that look like tiny shadow figures dancing. You run your hand along the edge, feeling the warmth soak through your fingertips. As you stand there, your shadow moves beside you, but slower now, as if it's considering something. It leans forward, just slightly stretching toward the basin, and for a brief moment you have the oddest sensation that your shadow is remembering something. Maybe not a memory it took from you, maybe one it picked up while it was away. Historians still argue over the scattered accounts of burnt shadow trails found in medieval bathhouses, especially in regions like Anatolia and the Levant. Some believed them to be signs of spiritual transformation. Others saw them as evidence of curses or unnatural separation of self. In one 14th century spa log, yes, they kept those. There's a cryptic note. He bathed alone, but 2 shadows left. The steam thickens now. You sit down on one of the stone benches, letting the warmth seep into your bones. The world becomes soft around the edges. You hear only dripping water, the shifting sigh of steam, and the gentle creak of your shadow settling in beside you. You glance down. Your reflection in the water is murky, shivering from the movement of heat, but you notice something strange. Your shadow isn't mirrored, not in the floor, not in the pool. It just sits beside you, unmoved by physics. For a moment, you close your eyes, and in the soft dark you hear footsteps, not yours, and not anyone else's in the room. They sound like your footsteps, but walking away. When you open your eyes, everything is still. Your shadow is right where it was. You smile. You don't feel haunted, you feel accompanied. Even if some part of you is still wandering, the part that remains is choosing to stay. As you rise and walk back toward the door, the charred footprints are gone. In their place, nothing but steam curling lazily across stone and your own shadow, soft, real steady falling into step beside you. The sun outside feels different now, not brighter but slower, like it's exhaling through golden lungs. The shadows on the cobblestones stretch like lazy cats, and yours returns to its usual position as if nothing at all has happened. But you know better. You both do. You follow a new path now, one lined with olive trees and rusted gates. This part of town is quieter still, if such a thing is possible. Even the birds seem to pause more often here mid-song, like they've forgotten their place in the melody. Eventually you arrive at a stairwell, narrow, stone, descending. There's no sign, but something about it calls to you an old patient invitation. You begin your descent. The air cools. The stone walls hold the temperature of forgotten cellars and wine kept for generations. Every step echoes gently behind you, like your footsteps are being repeated by someone walking just a little slower. Or maybe faster, you can't quite tell. At the bottom, you find a long hallway with high arched ceilings, flickering lanterns and framed drawings on either side. You move toward the first one. It's a sketch of a woman, and her shadow, only the shadow, has wings. In the next, a shadow walks ahead of its owner, confidently leading her down a mountain path. One frame holds only a silhouette sitting alone beneath a tree. Another child playing hopscotch while her shadow refuses to jump. You keep walking and the images grow stranger. A shadow curled inside a bed while the person stands watching from the footboard. A figure with two shadows, one smiling, one weeping. And then finally, you reach a door at the far end. It's not large or grand, but it's set into the stone as though it's always been there. You rest your hand on the worn brass handle. Before you open it, you glance down. Your shadow isn't beside you anymore. It's already passed through the door. You follow. The room inside is circular, domed with an oculus above that lets in soft, perfectly centered sunlight. In the center of the space is a sundial, not marked with hours, but with words. You step closer and read. The day you were forgotten. The hour you found yourself. The minute you let go. The moment you returned. There are no hands on the dial. Just your shadow leaning perfectly across the phrase, the moment you returned. You take a breath, not because you're tired, but because something about this space invites a pause, a soft moment to gather all the parts of yourself that have wandered through today. Your shadow shifts again, subtle, not dramatic. It rises just a little, stretching like a sigh, and then returns to rest along the curve of the floor. You realize then it's not following you anymore. It's walking with you, equal, not an echo, not a trick of light, a companion. Historians still argue whether any ancient buildings were truly constructed with shadow in mind. Some claim Roman temples aligned with solstices, that shadow-casting stones were used in rituals of self-reflection. Others say that's all modern myth-making, that people simply liked the light and the rest was just coincidence. But in this room, it's hard to believe in coincidence. You circle the dial once. Your feet sound soft against the stone. Your shadow mirrors you, steady, now no longer hesitating or leading. You stop at the edge of the light and look up. The oculus reveals a piece of sky, no clouds, no birds, just a single square of calm blue. You wonder how long it's been watching. You wonder how many shadows have passed through this room and left quietly changed. Then you walk out, back through the long hallway, past the silent sketches. The stairwell welcomes you with a slow hush of cool air. And as you climb your shadow beside you, step for step, the world above grows brighter, but not louder. You reach the street again. The birds have resumed their song. You emerge into the street as if waking from a dream you were never quite asleep in. The stone beneath your feet is sun-warmed now, and your shadow spills beside you like ink in still water, soft, quiet, fully present. The city has taken on a new stillness, not empty, just gentle. People pass by, reading, laughing softly, walking dogs that sniff lampposts like they hold ancient secrets. But no one seems hurried. No one seems particularly surprised that you've just stepped out of a staircase leading to nowhere. You find yourself drawn toward a little square ahead where a handful of folding chairs encircle a table set with something unusual, dozens of clocks. Big clocks, tiny pocket watches, whimsical kitchen timers, hourglasses of various sizes, and none of them tick, not a single one. They sit in perfect silence, all showing different times, none of which seem to match the sun overhead. Behind the table sits an old man wearing a velvet vest and holding a pencil behind one ear. He waves you over without looking up. "Just mister," he says cheerfully. "Your shadow, I mean." You glance down, your shadow is with you clearly and calmly. She was just here, he insists, tapping the glass of a sundial-shaped clock. Asked me what time it was, then left before I could answer. You smile politely, unsure if this is a joke. You know, he continues, people always think shadows belong to them. But sometimes, especially when no one's looking, it's the other way around. You ask him if all of these clocks are broken. Not broken, he says, just remembering different moments. Clocks don't always have to tell the current time. Some hold on to the important time. You nod as if that makes sense. Then you notice a strange detail. Some of the clocks show moments you remember. One shows the exact time you once watched your favorite tree fall in a storm. Another matches the minute your name was called in a waiting room, changing everything. One even shows the hour you woke up this morning and noticed for the first time that your shadow was missing. You lean in to study one shaped like a crescent moon. Instead of numbers, it has tiny sketches, a bird flying a door, creaking open, a cup tipping over. The hand points to a figure walking away, their shadow pointing in the opposite direction. Time isn't always linear. The man adds, sipping something from a mug that smells like cinnamon and rain. Sometimes it loops, sometimes it folds, and sometimes it drifts. He offers you a clock. It's small, brass, pocket-sized. You don't have to keep it, he says, just let it keep you company. You place it in your pocket. It doesn't tick. It hums almost imperceptibly, like a heartbeat on the other side of silence. Historians still argue whether timekeeping devices ever held spiritual significance beyond practical use. Some point to ancient water clocks used during sacred rituals. Others highlight the medieval belief that improperly tuned bells could curse a village's fortune. A few fringe historians even suggest shadows were once used as personal sundials, not for telling time, but for tracking presence. As you thank the man and step away, you notice your shadow is ever so slightly ahead, again just a pace. Not pulling, not running, just walking with purpose. You follow it into the shade of a narrow alley lined with ivy. Light slices through in thin golden blades. The ticking of your pocket clock begins just once. A single click, then silence again. And just like that, you realize something simple and strange. You are no longer afraid of losing your shadow, because now you know it can find its way back. You emerge from the alley into another open street, this one lined with ceramic tiles and faded murals. A stray cat watches you from a rooftop, yawning. You smile, and your shadow, feeling the warmth of the sun just like you, stretches a little wider, as if to say, let's keep going. You keep walking, the city unfolding like pages you've already read, but only now understand. The streets begin to slope upward, gently at first, then steeper, winding toward a hill you hadn't noticed before. It rises above the rooftops, crowned by trees swaying in a breeze you can't yet feel. Your shadow clings close as the incline grows. The stones underfoot are older here, uneven, and etched with thousands of faint footprints, worn in by time. Each step feels like following in someone else's rhythm. Someone who maybe like you had wandered up this hill searching for something unnameable. Halfway up, you pass a man playing a cello outside a blue door. He doesn't acknowledge you, but the notes curve around your feet like ribbons slowing your steps. Your shadow sways gently with the music, and for a moment you let yourself dance just a little. The melody shifts and a memory flickers, that time you dance in your kitchen, barefoot on cool tile, thinking no one was watching. But your shadow was. It always was. You reach the top of the hill. It's quiet here. The trees sway, and the city below hums faintly distant but peaceful. In the center of the clearing is a single stone bench. You sit, not from tiredness, but from a kind of reverence. Before you stretches a sun-drenched overlook, terracotta rooftops, winding streets, boats on the water far below. But what draws your eyes is the large flat stone embedded in the earth at your feet. It's a shadow tablet or so, the carved letters say. No date, no explanation. Just one line chiseled in old elegant script. To the ones who returned. You glance down. Your shadow fits perfectly within the stone's bounds, like a piece returning to its mold. And for a while, you sit in silence, just breathing, just listening to wind through olive leaves. Your shadow is still, not frozen, not stiff, just resting. You feel for the first time today entirely with yourself. Historians still argue about shadow tablets. Some believe they were offerings to the god of time or the keepers of dusk, or even ancient attempts to measure consciousness. Others say they were simply memorials for those who had wandered and returned change. There are only a handful of these tablets still known to exist, scattered through old cities half forgotten, misidentified as grave markers. But standing here, you don't need an expert's theory. You know what this is. It's a moment made solid, a space that says you came back. You are whole again. You reach into your pocket and touch the little clock the man gave you. It ticks once, and your shadow breathes. Not literally, of course, but in that way, light and shape can move together like a heart synchronizing with its echo. You look around and realize there are other shadow marks here, too, faint stains, etched outlines, as if dozens of people once stood where you're sitting now, each one leaving behind a moment of reunion. You stand. Your shadow rises with you, neither ahead nor behind. You begin your descent. The streets below welcome you gently. A warm breeze carries the scent of rosemary and aged wood. Your footsteps sound surer now, like they know where to land. You pass the cello player again. This time he meets your eyes. "Did you find it?" he asks, not stopping his music. You don't answer aloud. You don't need to. He nods once. The music swells behind you as you turn the corner and disappear down the hill shadow close beside you. The descent from the hill is slower than the climb, not because your legs ache, but because the city seems to invite it. The way the streets open before you now, the way your shadow moves with you quietly and confidently, it all feels different, not dramatic, just more whole. You pass a fountain you hadn't seen before. It's small, set into a wall, with water spilling from a lion's mouth into a wide stone basin. Around the rim, someone has carved dozens of tiny footprints, childlike playful, the kind of detail most people would miss. Your shadow dips across the stone as you lean in to splash water on your face. It's cool, clear, and smells faintly of mint and minerals. For a moment you stare at your reflection. It holds steady. This time it blinks with you. Not a beat too late, not a breath too early. You smile. Further down the road, you pass a small theater. Its wooden doors are propped open and a faded poster flaps in the breeze. You pause to read it. There's no date, no time, just a phrase. One night only, the play of your life. The street is otherwise empty and the theater calls to you with a gentle hush. You step inside. The room is dim, lit only by candle chandeliers. The stage is empty. The velvet seats are all vacant except for one row, where a few silhouettes sit quietly so still they seem carved from the dark. You take a seat near the back. The curtain rises slowly. No music, no grand opening, just you on stage. Not physically you an actor perhaps, but someone who wears your movements like a second skin. They pace, they fumble, they laugh when they drop something. You recognize the gestures, the tics, the way they run their fingers through their hair. Behind the actor a shadow moves, but unlike before it doesn't mirror them exactly. It interacts, pauses when the actor doesn't, glides across the floor. Sometimes it grows larger. Sometimes it curls inward, hiding behind props. The play continues, scene after scene, pulled not from history, but from memory, only not always your memory. One moment shows you speaking confidently in a room full of strangers. You've never done that. Another has you standing at a cliff's edge, letting go of something small, a key maybe. You don't know what it opens. The shadow through it all remains close, always watching, always near. And then finally a scene with no movement at all, just the actor sitting and the shadow sitting beside them, both still, both present, both home. The curtain falls. The silhouettes in the seats stand silent and slow. They fade into the darkness before you can catch their faces. You turn to leave and realize you're not carrying anything anymore. No mirror, no clock, no map, just your shadow. And that's enough. Historians still argue whether early shadow puppetry was purely entertainment or something more symbolic. Ancient scripts from Java and China suggest stories were told to honor lost ancestors, not just to amuse, but to guide. Some scholars think shadows in performance were meant to represent the parts of ourselves we couldn't express in daylight, the grief, the secrets, the unfinished conversations. As you step back out into the daylight, something clicks into place. This whole day, it's been the story of your shadow, and of how you stop thinking of it as just a shadow. The city has changed again, subtly, the colors warmer, the sky more open, the streets somehow wider even though they haven't moved. You pass a child drawing chalk figures on the stones. She waves at you, you wave back. You don't need to check if your shadow waves too. You know it does, and it waves a little longer. You walk on gently now like someone who no longer needs to chase or search. The air is heavier with late afternoon sun wrapping the streets in amber and long soft shadows. Yours trails behind you at first, then beside you, and sometimes just for a step or two it slips ahead, but not far, not away, just playful. Ahead is a wide plaza you hadn't noticed earlier. At its center, a large circular compass carved into the stone. The 4 cardinal directions are marked by small sculptures: an owl for the north, a fish for the south, a cat for the west and for the east. An empty plinth. The absence feels deliberate. You step into the circle. Your shadow follows, pooling calmly beneath you. This place doesn't hum or echo like the bathhouse or whisper like the cellar staircase. It waits. That's the only way to describe it. It's a place made for standing still, for noticing what moves without rushing. You close your eyes. Behind your lids, you imagine all the versions of yourself you've been today. The early steps uncertain and amused, the questions, the strange mirrors, the shadow slipping away. And now this steady quiet. When you open your eyes again, something has changed. Your shadow is no longer just your shape. It still resembles you, yes, but there's something new. A subtle curl to its shoulders, a straighter posture, perhaps even a hint of a smile you don't remember forming. You realize it's showing you who you are when you're not looking, and you like that person. A breeze moves across the plaza, and in the stillness that follows, you hear footsteps, not loud, not close, just nearby. And then, around the edge of the circle, figures begin to appear. Not people, not exactly. Shadows, moving without owners. Some are tall, some small. Some sway as they walk like dancers remembering a rhythm. They don't speak, they don't stop. They walk the perimeter of the compass in slow, deliberate circles, always counterclockwise. You watch, and slowly you begin to recognize them. That one moves like your childhood friend, the one who moved away before you ever said goodbye. Another leans slightly like your grandmother did in her garden, always bent toward whatever she was planting. And that one, yes, that's yours. The version of you who once wanted something different. The you who stayed behind. Historians still argue whether ancient compass roses were used for more than navigation. Some say early mariners believed that walking the circle at dusk could call forth the echoes of those they'd left behind. A few even wrote about shadow parades, silent processions said to protect travelers by reminding them of their origins. You step backward gently, and your own shadow lingers in the center just a moment longer before returning to your feet. The circle clears. The wind picks up again. The plaza empties as quickly as it filled. You're alone, but not alone. The empty plinth to the east still stands vacant. You approach it curious. At its base is a single word barely visible. Become. No statue, no symbol. Just that. You sit beside it for a while. Your shadow settles next to you, as if also needing to rest. The city continues around you softly. The sound of cutlery from a cafe, someone tuning a guitar, a door closing with a quiet latch, and you sitting at the edge of a compass that points not to where you're going, but to who you've always been walking toward. Yourself. Evening begins to unfold across the rooftops, turning everything a shade richer, deeper golds, cooler blues, longer shadows. The city hums low now, like it knows bedtime is coming and doesn't want to wake anyone too suddenly. You walk without aim, but with a kind of trust, like the streets have softened beneath your feet, like the cobblestones are gently guiding, not resisting. You find yourself in a narrow lane strung with paper lanterns, some glowing, some gently fluttering in the breeze like quiet breaths. Each one casts a delicate pattern of light and dark on the walls, and for the first time you notice how your shadow weaves between them with the lightest touch. It no longer clings to you, it dances. At the end of the lane, a small doorway, no sign, just a curtain of blue fabric pinned to one side. You step through. It's a bookshop, but not the kind you expect. The walls are lined not just with books, but with shadow boxes, glass frames containing, well, shadows. Not figures, not shapes, moments. One holds the silhouette of someone tying a shoe, another the stretch of two hands nearly touching, another a chair tipped slightly back as if someone just stood up. You move carefully through the aisles. No one else is here. Or maybe they're here, but not loudly. Your own shadow brushes the floor behind you, pausing longer in front of some displays than others. You come to a table stacked with thick volumes, each labeled not by title, but by feeling. Almost when you knew, not yet, if you'd said it. You open one. The pages are blank, but somehow you remember what's written there. You close it quickly. Then you spot it. On a shelf tucked beneath a stained glass window, a book labeled The Day Your Shadow Walked Without You. You reach for it slowly. It's heavier than it looks. You open it. There are no pages, just a surface like silver leaf, reflective, but the reflection is soft like water at dusk. In it you see yourself not as you are, but as you've been throughout the day. You walking into the sun alone. You looking into mirrors that looked back strangely. You holding a clock that didn't tick. You watching your shadow curl beside a sundial. And finally here, now you seeing yourself clearly, quietly, without fear. Historians still debate whether these shadow books existed, if they were real objects or metaphors written into travel journals and old dream diaries. Some claim they were burned to protect what they revealed. Others say they could only be opened by those who had lost and found themselves on the same day. No copies remain, only rumors. You close the book and place it gently back on the shelf. As you turn, you catch your shadow watching you, not following, not imitating, just witnessing, like it's proud of you. You step back outside. The lanterns have brightened against the twilight. The stars begin to appear, first one, then another, then so many you stop counting. The city glows now, not from lights, but from rest. Everything has slowed, everything including you, and your shadow walks beside you, steady and still. No longer lost, no longer ahead, exactly where it belongs. Night has fully settled in now. The sky above is velvet dark, pricked with stars you don't quite recognize. The air is cooler, carrying with it the faint perfume of jasmine, wood smoke, and bread left to cool on a windowsill. Lamps burn low in the alleyways. Cats dart like soft living shadows between flower pots. Every corner of the city seems to be whispering the same thing. It's time, not to go exactly, but to rest, to let today soften at the edges. You walk one last quiet street. It's cobbled and crooked, the kind of path that feels like it remembers everyone who's ever passed. On the wall beside you, your shadow appears again, clear, slow, relaxed. It moves like it knows this is the end of the day's journey, and it's satisfied with how things turned out. At the end of the lane is a gate, low, wooden, unlocked. Beyond it, a walled garden. You push it open and step inside. It's not a grand place, no fountains or sculptures. Just a small stone path winding through soft grass, a few benches and trees with leaves that shimmer silver under the stars. Fireflies blink lazily above the ground, drifting like living punctuation marks in the slow poem of the night. In the center of the garden, a circle of smooth stones. You sit on one. Your shadow joins you. Not beneath you, not behind you, just beside you. And you realize you're not here because your shadow came back. You're here because you were willing to keep walking even when it didn't. You sit quietly. No clock ticks, no doors open. Nothing more needs to happen. Around you the garden breathes. Far away you hear a bell chime. Just once. A signal perhaps that the day has closed. You glance down at your shadow and for a moment it does something strange. It nods. You don't see it directly. You just feel it. Like someone gently agreeing with you. Like your past and your present, your fears and your memory all folding together into a quiet yes. Historians still argue about the gardens of reunions, supposed places where people could go to wait for their shadows to return or to listen to what they had learned while apart. Some accounts describe them in vivid detail. Others suggest they were never places but times, moments of stillness at the end of a journey when something just clicks into place. You sit a while longer. No need to rush. The garden isn't going anywhere. The world outside hums gently like a lullaby you forgot the words to, but still remember how to hum. And then slowly you rise. You walk back through the gate, down the lane, through streets that feel like lullabies made of stone. Your steps are slow now, your eyelids heavier, your shadow steady. At last your journey returns you to the door you began from, though it looks different now, softer, kinder. Maybe it's always been this way, and only now are you quiet enough to see it. You reach for the handle. Your shadow steps inside with you. Together you close the door. The lights are low. The room is still. The journey is done. So now let the images blur. Let the sounds of the city melt away. There's nothing left to walk toward and nothing chasing behind. You followed a path that started with a question and ended with something much softer. Not an answer maybe, but a kind of quiet recognition. You are here. Your shadow is with you. You don't need to hold on too tightly. It will stay so long as you let it rest, so long as you listen. Breathe slowly. In, out. Let your thoughts drift like the leaves in that moonlit garden. Nothing needs solving, not tonight. Let the memories fade into warmth like candlelight curling against a wall. The streets will be there tomorrow. The clocks, the books, the sundials and doorways. You've seen them now. You've stepped inside them. You've come out the other side. You are not lost, and you are not alone. Let your breath grow deeper. Let your muscles soften. Let your eyes close gently. The day is over, and the shadow that walked without you has come home. Good night.